How will America weather the historic times we face? I mean, we're living right now. Let's just be honest about this. Let's be clear about this. We are living right now in one of those hinge points of history, one of those moments where people, where people gauge events by whether they happen before it or after it. Like, before 9/11, after 9/11, before World War II, after World War II. That's where we are right now. This is, and I'm not just talking about the war in Israel. You've got the war in Ukraine. You've got the possibility that China could vaporize Taiwan. We've got the civic institutions in every democracy in the world are under assault from trolls and bots that are showing up on social media because the social media companies are unwilling to pay for content moderation. You've got climate change that could soon render large parts of the planet uninhabitable. Half of the plants and animals on Earth right now are on the verge of extinction. Here in America, Donald Trump and his MAGA army are daily threatening violence against their perceived enemies. Right-wing billionaires are funding programs designed to destroy social democracy in America. And, they're getting success after success with their bought-off legislatures and wined and dined judges and justices. And the neo-fascist media in America are spoon-feeding a steady diet of hate and fear on 1,500 radio stations nationwide and billionaire-owned television platforms. I mean, these are moments that are pregnant with danger, but also with possibility. These are moments that require exceptional and farsighted leadership. They require statesmanship rather than politics, a commitment to the general welfare rather than just me, my, the personal and tribal self-interest that we so often see from our politicians. I mean, after all, this generation of Americans may well determine the fate and future of democracy in the United States and by extension, all around the world. If our democracy falls 13 months from now in the next election, and there's a possibility it will if Donald Trump gets elected or if Republicans take control of the Senate, if our democracy falls, the United States will almost certainly go neo-fascist, just like Russia did, just like Hungary did, just like Egypt did, just like Turkey did, just like the Philippines did. I mean, country after country has gone down this road. And as the result, authoritarianism and oligarchy will spread all around the world like, some kind of fungus on an orange. I mean, this is where we're at. When Lauren Boebert, during the January 6th attack, tweeted, "This is 1776," she was right. She didn't realize how she was right, but this really is one of those hinge points in history. And these people who are, trying to tear down social democracy in America and turn America into, something like, I don't know, Sudan or something, a poverty-stricken Central or South American country. I mean, this is essentially what these billionaires want. No more social safety net, no more free education, no more, hospitalization or health care, no more Medicare, no more Medicaid, no more Social Security. This is what they want. They want to turn America into a third world country. Over at popular.info, Judd Legum is documenting how one of these billionaires just moved $5 billion into a fund to basically, crank Republican politics. The guy who oversaw the packing of our Supreme Court is sitting on over $1 billion. The Democratic Party has moved fairly steadily in the last 6, 7, 8 years away from Reagan's neoliberalism. They had embraced it, I'll give you that, during the Clinton and Obama administrations, but Biden is moving away from this, as are the Democrats in Congress. But the Republican Party has gone all in on this agenda that America's oligarchs have laid out before them, an agenda of racial and regional hate, an agenda of denying climate change, an agenda of suppressing the vote. There's an old saying that's been attributed both to Alexander Hamilton and Malcolm X that if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And that's today's Republican Party. I mean, the Republican Party right now is trying to come up with a Speaker of the House, right? You've got one guy who's accused of covering up sex crimes and another guy who calls himself David Duke without the baggage. Patrick McHenry, the Republican who is currently the temporary Speaker of the House, this bow tie wearing guy from North Carolina, he took in more than 90% of his campaign money from lobbyists for the industries that he basically regulates as chairman of the House Financial Services Committee. So far this year, he's taken in $856 from small dollar donors, over $1 million from these financial services companies that he writes legislation that can control. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt is rolling in his grave. And when you look at what has happened, who has done what? I mean, Jim Jordan is the other candidate, is a candidate for Speaker of the House. He's been in Congress 16 years. He has gone from being an Ohio wrestling coach to being worth over $30 million. And in that 16 years, he has sponsored 4 pieces of legislation, none of which became law. Republicans don't believe in government. They want billionaires to run the country. They want to take America back to that Charles Dickens world. On the other hand, Democrats are saying, government can do things for the people. I mean, in the past 3 years, the Democrats passed the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. They passed the child tax credit, $1,400 a month to help with food and rent, provided small businesses with $7 billion in loans, distributed $128 billion in aid to education to the states. Biden signed a $1 trillion infrastructure program. The CHIPS and Science Act, $53 billion to bring our manufacturing, our high-tech manufacturing back to the United States. The Inflation Reduction Act, capping Medicare prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year, or modernizing the IRS, reducing greenhouse gases, slowing inflation. These accomplishments show that when you put Democrats in charge, as they were for the first 2 years of the Biden administration, we can actually get things done. We can put America back on track. But once the Republicans come in, guess what? We are just a month away from a shutdown of the federal government again. They are refusing to fund Ukraine, a democracy that is struggling. They are, now you've got Republicans trash-talking Israel, Tommy Tuberville and Donald Trump yesterday. I'll get to that in a minute. At the state level, the Republicans, if they're not going to pass laws, what do? Well, they are actually passing laws at the state level. They've outlawed abortion in half of America. They've put in place more than 300 restrictions on voting rights. They've gerrymandered state after state so tightly that red state elections basically have become meaningless. I mean, the leading Republican candidate for president of the United States is a convicted rapist, serial adulterer, convicted con man, and a traitor who tried to overthrow our government. His main opponent for the nomination, Ron DeSantis, day before yesterday was asked, should Republican candidates have dinner with white supremacist Holocaust deniers? And they had to ask him the question 4 times to get a straight answer. He was so afraid of offending white supremacist Holocaust deniers. Ron DeSantis, seriously. Now, there's still hope for a revival in America of decency, trust, compassion, and democracy. In 13 months, we're going to go to the polls, and this is going to decide the fate and future of America and much of the rest of the world. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren to get ready for this election, to wake people up, to inform people, to double-check our voting registration, particularly if you live in a city in a red state, because these are the areas where they're most aggressively purging people from the voting rolls.